Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today I'm excited to talk to my buddy Karen Phillips about A Deadly Combo. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me. And it's great to see you again after Left Coast Crime, Seattle Shakedown.
We shook it down too, didn't we? We had such a good time.
We never did see Bigfoot, but we had a good time.
That's right. That's right. So Deadly Combo is probably in the cozy mystery series. Is that what you would say?
That is a good question. It is. Most people are telling me it's traditional with cozy elements. And so, gotcha. Yeah, I'm going with a blend of traditional and cozy. And there are a lot of authors out there who are blending the genres in that way.
And it's a good thing to, Anthony Horowitz recently said on an interview that no murder is cozy, even though there's a genre called cozy mysteries. So, I was like, well, I think I would agree with that. All murder is probably pretty bad. So
I saw that interview. You did a great job. It was wonderful interview. I love the fat kid story, the little secret story he shared.
It was so sweet of him. I enjoyed it very much. So give our audience an overview of what A Deadly Combo is about.
Okay, so twin sisters Raquel and Bridget attend a vintage trailer fest and stumble across a dead body. And when Bridget becomes a suspect, Raquel, her nickname is Rocky, vows to prove her innocent. And Raquel's nickname is Rocky because she takes boxing lessons, and her dad taught her how to box when she was very young and gave her that nickname.
I think that's so cute. It was so fun. And their last name is Nelson. So should I assume that's because you put somebody in a Nelson hold?
Well, I have to admit, there's a lot of personal, life experiences in this book. And it's my first full-length novel. So, I tended to write from experience, and Nelson is a family name.
Got you. It is good to stick sort of close to what you know, because that way you don't stumble very far.
Right.
And you box in real life, is that true?
I do. In fact, today I have my lesson at 2:00. I take lessons twice a week with a super middleweight champion named Mike Guy. I've acknowledged him in my book, and he's actually the coach in my book is based on my trainer, Mike Guy. And just to be clear, I just do it for, exercise. I don't compete. And right. So you'll never really see me on pay-per-view.
All right. Darn it. That would be nice money, wouldn't it? I will say, though, that like in kickball, you will be my first pick because I need somebody that can kick ass just in case we need it.
Okay. I'm there. I've got your back.
I love it. So in this A Deadly Combo, they go to a vintage trailer fest. Have you been to one of those in real life?
I have, and I actually bought a vintage trailer. It was not anything cute. It was a 1972 Aristocrat Starliner, which is kind of square and, like I said, not very cute. But hey, it was considered vintage at the time. And so a boyfriend of mine and I attended a few trailer fests, and they're just a ton of fun because everybody allows you to come inside their trailers and look around, and they, dress in period or costume period correct to when the trailer was built. And there's vintage food like, pups in a blanket and some other things that I can't remember because I don't normally eat that sort of food. But it's just a great time. And there's, usually they have like karaoke and all kinds of stuff going on.
I love that. So in this book, Bridget has a Shasta, which is a cute little trailer. and she's competing at a trailer fest, and her neighbor has a Westwood, which is quite a bit bigger trailer. Is that right?
That's correct. And it has 2 doors, where a Shasta, being as small as it is, just has one. The Westwood has 1 door on either side of the trailer at each end.
Oh, how cool. How cool.
Yeah. So that allowed me to, that helped with the plot of my story.
Well, and it gives, it gives the killer a chance to get in and out without being seen, which of course is what
Exactly.
you want. So, and I found that all of the characters, I felt like I knew them all. I mean,
Oh, nice.
I think sometimes when you read some books, you're like, oh, okay, this is really great, but it's highbrow and it's a little above my station in life. But I really felt like with your characters, I felt like I knew them. I felt like if I showed up to a trailer fest, I would find Bridget and Opal competing against each other.
Well, that's very nice. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. Are you a very competitive person in real life?
No, I do like to challenge myself, and I do get upset if I don't do well at something. But I have to admit, I've tended to be pretty good at most everything I've excelled. I've excelled at most everything I've tried. And then I tend to get lazy because things come somewhat easy for me. But believe me, writing a full-length mystery book was not easy. It took me 5 years to learn the craft and to properly set it up as a mystery should be set up, with the red herrings and the hooks and the clues and all that.
Well, there were so many places that I was like, oh, I'm sure it's this person and I'm sure it's that person. Because you gave us some red herrings, but not in a way to fool the reader, which is a big thing for me. I like to be able to see a red herring and sort of go down a pathway with it, but not be fooled by it, because some people call it an unreliable narrator and stuff.
Mm.
Those type things are difficult for me because I am competitive. So I do want to figure out who done it before the end, if at all possible, and don't like to be lied to. So I felt like you gave us red herrings, but you gave us possible red herrings, and you didn't trip us up along the way.
Thank you. I feel like everyone is sort of stumbling along with my protagonist, Rocky, as she tries to solve the crime.
So one of the things you did, so you gave us fraternal twins instead of identical twins, which I think was probably, in my estimation, was a good choice on your part, because then you get the differences between the sisters. Yet they are twins and they feel some of the same emotions and stuff. I was often surprised that Rocky finds herself not as attractive as she thinks her sister is. Yet I find that most all of the characters in your book are really quite drawn to Rocky, which I found to be a unique and wonderful thing. Does that make sense? Sometimes I ramble.
No, it does. Yes, I wanted to make it clear that Rocky had some level of jealousy with her sister Bridget, because Bridget is so opposite of Rocky. She's blonde. She has more of a vivacious figure, or voluptuous, and most people comment on that. Also, Bridget resembles their deceased mother, and Rocky is more trim and athletic with brown hair and resembles more their father. And I didn't want to make them identical twins, because that is such a unique relationship, from what I understand, that they can even read each other's minds, and know what they're thinking, even when they don't live close to each other. And I couldn't really begin to explore that properly. So I made them fraternal, and I thought that would be more in line with what I was trying to achieve with the story.
I liked it. I mean, I really did. And it's so funny because the men seem to, even though Rocky is not as pretty as Bridget, the men seem to be very attracted to her. I mean, so you sort of threw me a little curve, because I really thought when we first met Bruce, I thought there was going to be a spark between them. And then I find out Bruce has a husband. So it's like not going to quite go in the same direction I thought it was going to go.
Well, right. And going back to the men being attracted to Rocky, I wanted that to be part of the complexity of her character that she doesn't necessarily feel she's attractive, but really she is. And I had fun with Bruce. I was trying to be as inclusive as I could with the characters in my book. The boxing coach is Black, like my boxing coach, and Bruce is gay. And I have these people in my life, so I wanted to reflect that.
And I appreciate that. I noticed that when I was reading, anytime I see inclusivity included in a book, it always warms my heart, because I do think we as humans really do seek out community, whatever that community is. So when I see inclusivity, it always makes me very happy. It's like, I love this.
Thanks. And I even included a little bit of, well, so her ex-boyfriend is Angelo. He has some Hispanic, he's, Latino heritage, but I don't really explain that very well. And then, I don't get into that. And then I do touch on the winery that she works at temporarily to try to investigate. There are some Hispanics who work in the vineyards.
Yes, and I thought you did that really well. So do you have a favorite winery close to where you are?
There are so many wineries where I live in the foothills. It's amazing. And now they're just all over there. There's some in Sacramento, there's some in Granite Bay where I live. But going to all the wineries in the foothills is a lot of fun. And I've lived here so long that I used to go back in the day when they didn't charge for a tasting fee. And
Right.
now that's unheard of. So I don't really have a favorite. They're all good. David Gerard Vineyards is really good. Boger. Yeah, there's a lot.
I would say here in Southern California, we have the beer part. So we have all of these neighborhood breweries. I mean, honestly, every neighborhood in Los Angeles has one.
Oh,
So
that's funny.
yeah, which is fun because you get a different taste everywhere you go. And there, of course, you pay for everything. They don't have freebies.
Right.
Just
Well,
the same.
that's you. It's all you have to pay now for sure
Yes,
everywhere you
yes,
go.
I think so. So I know this question is like asking about children, but did you have a favorite character to write that you enjoyed the most?
I have never been asked that. Okay, the dad. He lends a lot of humor to the book. He tries to become Rocky's sidekick, and he's 78 in the book, and he's still got a lot of energy, and he's strong, and he, feels that he can really play a part and help her solve the crime. But, he tends to get in the way, sort of a loose cannon. But that helps. He actually does help her.
I think so too. And I have a couple of clients in my accounting life. They're older, and I have a couple of them that are a lot like Rocky's dad in the fact that they're fit and vital, and they are handsome men and have no problem flirting with women. And I'm like, it's almost shameless, but at the same time, it's a bit of, they're just sure of themselves, and it is, they're around his age, 78. I even have some that are older than that, and I would be like, "Oh, all righty then, go ahead," because some people are naturally charming, and I feel like that's what Rocky and Bridget's dad is. He's just charming, and people are drawn to him because he's a free spirit, and I loved that.
Thanks. He is patterned a bit after my own father. And the developmental editor I used came to my book launch, and my parents came, and they're both right now they're like 86, 87. So after the book launch, the developmental editor came up to me and she said, "I see what you mean about your dad. I see him exactly."
I love that. I love that. I think that's so fun. So besides, this is your first full-length book, but you also have you write in other genres. Is that right?
Right. And before I mention that, I am coming out with book 2 in my Rocky Nelson boxing series in October. And
Lovely.
then I'll have a third book in 2025. And that's it for the series. I'll just do the 3 books. But I'm excited about book 2.
Oh, I'm very excited about that. Congratulations, Karen. That's
Thanks.
wonderful. And so you write in the horror genre, is that right?
Right. So I do occasionally like to dabble in, let out my creepy side. And so this anthology with Kevin J. Anderson is Hidden
Betrayed.
Villain. Pardon?
What's it called? Hidden Villain
Hidden
Portrayed?
Villains Betrayed. And Kevin J. Anderson writes a short story in it, and I just love him. He, wrote for the X-Files and a lot of science fiction. He's very, very talented. But so I have a story in it called Killing Karen. And you can take that two ways. Either Karen does the killing or someone kills Karen. And it's based on a true story. When I went on a hike and I used the Meetup app. I don't know if you've ever done anything with Meetup.
I know what it is, but I haven't.
Okay. Yeah. So I've done a lot of hikes with Meetup and I've always had a good experience. And this man that I'd never met agreed to carpool with me. And there was going to be a third person. But when I met him at the parking lot that we agreed to meet at, she found other transportation, he told me, which I thought was interesting. But, he seemed like a nice person. And so to make a long story short, we went on the hike. But we went to the wrong place. So, here I am with this complete stranger and we're waiting and waiting. And he starts making small talk and he goes, I have a thing for Karens. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? And he said, my son's mother was a Karen. And then he said, I was engaged to a Karen, but we broke it off when we found out we weren't compatible. I'm just like, what are the chances? What's going to happen here? And we went on we found out, because he was texting this third person who was going to carpool with us. We found out that we were at the end of the trail. They were at the beginning of the trail. And we said, what the heck, let's just go on a hike ourselves, because it was a nice day. And really, I felt comfortable with him despite that. Strange start.
I have a friend that's been married to two Karens. Seriously, I'm like, really? Yes, and his sister's name is Karen. I'm like, couldn't you get out of this little area? So maybe it's the name. It is.
That's funny because my brother is married to a Karen, and she's my same age. Yeah, that doesn't help my 87-year-old parents. That's for sure. But it all ended fine. But my story doesn't end fine.
But I love that. I love how life can give us fodder for a story. That's a fun thing. So that's a wonderful thing. So Karen, do you have a website or social media you'd like to share?
Yes, my website is KarenAPhillips.com. And my social media links are on my website.
Fantastic. Again, the book is called A Deadly Combo. It's so great. Thank you so much for joining me, Karen.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at outwithdan.com, on Twitter at outwithdan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.